Hey, it's tree line time on that field that I seeded up. So hopefully the seed's coming up soon. But we're in the process of putting in a tree line along one of the fence lines. Found the easiest way to do it is use the kids to get the planting done. We've been blessed with a fair amount of trees that were free. So we're putting them in here on the tree line. Every single post is getting one about probably 10 feet out. My daughter's there walking around marking them with the tape measure. My son's helping hold. Neighbors give me a couple different tree spikes to use. Tree spades, whatever you call them. They work pretty slick. So put the kids to work and see if we can get these in. We've got some pine trees. We've got some maple trees. We've got some shrub trees. Basically, what we kind of like to do in this hard clay is just kind of make an opening, pound this thing in, make an opening, kind of pull it back, get it so that you can, put the plant in it. And, they kind of fell into the rhythm after a while, considering there's, I don't know, 160 of these to plant. It really worked out pretty good. So once they figured out how to kind of get through the clay and get things busted open, they were able to get it in. The tree line is what a tree line is. When you're putting up a shelter belt or a tree line, I always tell people if you plant 100, expect in 3 years to maybe have 20. Because that's about what it seems like. Between the hard clay and the lack of rain or too much rain or the lack of heat or too much heat or the lack of cold or too much cold or no snow or too much snow, it seems to always take its bearing. And if that doesn't get you, then you've got the deer and the rodents and everything else. So to help these little plants out, we've got them moist under towels so they don't dry out in the sun. We're dipping them in a solution that's supposed to help stimulate growth and really try to promote them doing well. So again, they're wet under the towels. We dip them in the solution. We put them in and get them in the holes the best we can. Some of the roots are a little bit long. And then we're driving the spike in kind of next to it, uplifting the dirt and kind of pushing them shut. That's been the easiest way for us to plant them and then just, smash the dirt around them and get going. We've had about the best luck doing this of all the methods we've tried. Again, some of these are pretty bare root, pretty long, pretty deep, and there's different types of trees. We're not real specific on what we're putting in. We just need to get the trees in the ground. One of the tough parts we have, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with the DNR or you're dealing with the Arbor Day Foundation or the Wildlife Research Group. It doesn't matter who you're dealing with. All these groups want you to order these trees like in February. And then the minute it warms up just enough to get past frost and snow, they want to ship these things. Well, that's great, but you still got to deal with the weather where you're at. So unfortunately, when these trees showed up, we still had a little bit of frost on the ground. That's never the best. So it took us a little bit to get these things, to the point that we could plant. We had to get the field fenced. We had to get the field seeded. And as you can see at this point, we're just kind of waiting for it to all kick in gear as the weather is finally drying out and finally warming up. So we're putting them in, get them in the best we can. So right now we're just making holes and pushing them in as fast and as quickly as we can. Again, like I said, the kids kind of hit their rhythm with getting them in, which was great. Make the hole, dig in behind it if you can, and then shut the hole. That turned out to be about the best method. Free it up and then push it shut against the plant and make sure you get the hole shut. Kind of found that when you dig it in, you want to push the bottom first so you don't get an air pocket, then push the top when you're closing it. So as you can see here, she's hopefully going to do it right here. She's going to beat this thing in and push the bottom shut, then she pushes the top shut. That way you make sure you get it good. And then she's actually stomping it with her foot too, just to make sure it gets compacted well. And hopefully we score. We get, a nice season to get these plants up. Buying a couple hundred trees like this costs a pretty penny unless you bare root them, folks. You can certainly buy them in pots. That's another way to do it. But then you got to be shoveling or taking scoops out of the ground to put those in. Again, with the wildlife that gets me, the weather that gets me in the season, I find it better to just plop these things in, come back next year, anything that's dead gets another plant in it, and then come back the third year, anything that's dead gets another plant. And by then I seem to get a pretty good tree line up and running. So hopefully the trees will benefit us. Anything that's an oak will lay acorns, that'll attract the wildlife. anything in the maple family. Hopefully in 10 years it gets big enough and we can tap it. Anything that's in the shrub family, you know, like the elderberries, blackberries, currants, stuff like that, either be for wildlife or for eating. So again, we just kind of mix it up as we go down the row and get these in. On a hot day like this, it's good to get this thing in and planted. That's about the best way I can phrase it. Shout out to, like I said, having a tree tool like this. Again, our neighbors, Sarah was nice enough to let us borrow it, and that was fantastic. I'd recommend, like I said, a root dip like we're using. It seems to stimulate them and get it past it. Plus, you don't have to come back and immediately water that night if you get them stimulated and soaked good. And certainly try to time it. There's rain coming tomorrow. We've had a lot of it lately, but we dried out here enough to get these in, and then rain's coming, so hopefully we can make it work. And they'll all be planted just like this. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll keep putting out great videos like this.